another knitting podcast. My name is Ina, I come from Norway and I am here today to talk to you about my knitting. You can find me on social medias as Ina Knits and both on Instagram, which is ina.knits, and here on YouTube as Ina Knits, and on Patreon as well as Ina Knits. It's been a month approximately since I last talked to you about my knitting here on YouTube, so I have quite a lot to show you today. I was of course intending to put up a video a couple of weeks back, but it's been super hectic and life has definitely happened here in my home, and there's been some illness and there's been a lot of other activities. I've been to work and we have had our winter break, which was absolutely lovely. I have been knitting a lot. I knit every day. Sometimes it's only a few minutes, and some days I get a lot more knitting done. But when we went on winter break back in February, we had to drive for 9-10 hours. So I just brought a lot of knitting in the car, and I was almost done with the I was done with the first sleeve before I sat down in the car, and I kind of completed the second sleeve while we were driving to our destination. And the Northland sweater is a design by Petite. And here it is. It's really hard to show you in one piece. It is knitted top down, and I kind of went for a turtleneck because that was what Christian wanted, so he can fold it down whenever he wants to, or fold it up if it's very chilly, and it will reach him about here. And it's a very good pattern, by the way. This is the shoulder increases, and it kind of drops into a raglan, so it sits very nicely on his shoulders. And yeah, this is the yarn I've used. It's from Rico Design, and it's their color number 21. We bought quite a lot of this while in Florence during fall break. It was on sale in a yard shop there, and Christian is really fond of tweed yarn, so this is a combination of wool and viscose and polyamide. And he has been wearing, you can probably tell, he's been wearing this sweater a lot since it was finished. But I think it's holding up really well. I mean, it's there's some degree of pilling. But yeah, it's nothing too bad. We can definitely depill it and it will be fine. So as it's knitted top down, so the length of the sweater is just perfect for him in my opinion, but we haven't kind of washed it yet. He would like to have another centimeters, maybe 5 centimeters longer, but I decided to kind of postpone to add another few centimeters because I'm not sure if this is a fabric that grows in the wash or not. So the plan is to eventually wash this and lay it flat to dry and see how the fabric kind of reacts to that. And if it's kind of the same after washing, I will of course undo the bottom ribbing and add a few centimeters to the length. But all in all, he's super happy, and I'm very happy too. It was a kind of an easy knit to do. My only kind of not concern, but I was not too pleased to knit with a dark yarn. I think my eyesight is aging, so I need really good lighting in order to manage to knit with such dark yarn, especially in the nights, of course. And yeah, I also struggled a little bit with the fabric, as it is, the yarn is kind of not very even. It is spun in a way that sometimes it is very loosely spun and hence kind of creates a lump or a, yeah, and other places it's tightly or tighter spun, so, and then it will be a thinner thread, so it kind of varied all the way, and it was a little bit splitty in some places. So yeah, but I was so determined to just clear it of my needles and of course give him this sweater that he really wanted. So yeah, it is completed and everybody's happy, so that is the most important thing. My next finished object. I'm very excited about this, and it has been on the go for so long. It is my Damejakka Loppa. So yeah, this has been quite a process. I casted it on maybe 5 years ago. It is a long time ago. I knitted the colorwork yoke quite fast because that is the fun part. And after that it just went straight into hibernation, and it has been lingering for a very long time. I picked it up last year at some point and started working on these, the main color and dots. And yeah, I came to a point where I had knitted a little bit down one of the arms and a little bit down on the body. And this is a cardigan that's knitted in the round. Then you have to do a steek and pick up stitches and do the button band afterwards. So yeah, I managed to finish the knitting portion of this sweater in maybe January, I think it was. I showed you this in February, and then I still hadn't done the steek and the button bands. So that is now complete. I don't know if you can see, but this is how the yarn is looking when it's not washed, and this is how it looks once it's kind of soaked and dried. So it will bloom, and I haven't kind of washed the jacket after I added the button bands, but it is completed and it will stretch out once I give it a good block. So next time I'm going to wear this jacket. That is my goal anyway. And I didn't want to add buttonholes and buttons, so I haven't done that. It's just a button band as a kind of a ribbing. The reason for that is that I kind of prefer to not close up those cardigans, and if I come to that conclusion after some time that I wish that I had buttons, I will add some sort of snaps, or yeah, I will figure a way to add the buttons anyway. Something that can help me close up the cardigan. Yeah, it is a very good written pattern. I can definitely recommend it. It's from a Norwegian designer called Pinneguri, or Myhre. And yeah, the pattern is available in English as well. And yeah, I have talked about this cardigan so many times, so I won't bore you with more details, but if you're interested in more details, please check out my previous knitting chat here on YouTube. So yeah, I have kind of secured all the ends, but I haven't trimmed them yet. Not all of them, at least. So yeah, and one last thing. So inside of the jacket or the cardigan, this is how it looks after you have steeked it. So I'm going to sew this raw edge in to make it a little neater. So if the jacket or the cardigan kind of flares open, you won't see this very raw and rustic look. So it will be, I will show you next time when I'm wearing it, but that is the kind of ultimate last finishing touch that I want to add to it. So yeah, I'm very happy that this is off my needles now, and to have this cardigan in my wardrobe. Very happy about it. Hopefully you can hear me okay today. I apologize for the problems and issues there's been with the sound quality of my videos. Today I'm recording with my brand new camera, which I have been able to purchase thanks to my lovely Patreons. So hopefully this will give you a better experience watching my knitting talk here on YouTube. Okay, moving on with finished knits. I cannot quite recall if I showed you my scrappy kind of advent socks. So these were finished in February. This is a product of some lovely advent minis that I got through an advent yarn swap with Marilisa in Greece. And I got 24 10-gram minis of fingering weight sock yarn, and most of them were hand dyed, so they were lovely. And I started off knitting a cowl, which I have already showed you. It was finished back in January, and then I decided to use up the remains by knitting a pair of socks. So I started with this pair, and I have basically just chosen to knit them with different colors, but as they are constructed kind of in the same way, they are definitely related, so sister socks. So I have knitted 10 rounds with each color, and then chosen to knit a solid, or just use one color for the cuffs and the heels and the toes. So yeah, that is that. I'm very pleased with how these turn out. I think they're beautiful, and it brings me enormous amounts of joy knitting on scrappy projects like this. I always want to have a scrappy project on my needles, because it is just the best feeling for me to be able to create something beautiful and useful out of scraps. It is just... I love it. So once I finished my pair of socks, I was still left with quite a lot of leftover advent minis. I didn't have equal amounts of all of the yarns, so I decided to make another scrappy pair of socks in another way. So what I did, I casted on the ribbing with one color, and when I kind of thought that I reached halfway point on what was left on that yarn nugget, I casted on the second sock using the same yarn but from the other end of the little yarn ball. And then I kept on knitting until I ran out of yarn, basically. And yeah, so I knitted both socks consecutively, and this is how they turned out. They are quite similar. I'd say they are matching, actually. So yeah, and I could perhaps manage to finish both socks with only using the remaining advent minis, but then I would have to knit them quite a lot shorter. So I just kept on knitting until I ran out completely of yarn, and that is this blue tweedy yarn down here. And after that I just added sea green, teal color Filcolana Arvetta that I had in my stash from another project that I will show you after this one. So this is my other happy scrappy pair of socks. Both of these pairs are knitted using 2.25mm needles, which is my preferred needle when it comes to knitting thinner, like fingering weight sock yarn. and they are both European size 39. And they fit me well, so I will keep them both. Yeah, very, very, very happy with my socks. And then, I believe last time we spoke, I was almost finished with the next thing I will show you here, which are my wrist warmers. So yeah, these were both once a pair of socks, meaning I finished 1.5 sock and then I completely just gave up on the project. This is intarsia knitted. There are a lot of balloons in many different colors, and then there was a girl down here. So this is the top of the sock, the top ribbing, and then there was a girl here knitted in intarsia. And yeah, I didn't want to keep the socks. I just wanted to throw it away because I was frustrated and felt down about the whole thing. The heel was just completely off. They didn't fit me at all and I didn't enjoy the process. But then when I showed you these on my Whips and UFOs special episode in January, one lovely viewer suggested that I could kind of rib back up to a point here and then knit a ribbing and use them as wrist warmers. And they are so toasty and warm, and I will show you why. Because there are numerous threads in here and they kind of work as an insulation layer, I guess. It just makes them so toasty in here. I have started to fasten and trim some of the ends, and I might do the same with the rest at some point, but it is such an undertaking to do all of this, and the other one is even worse. So I don't think I will actually finish that process. And it's no problem using them as is. I have made sure just to trim off the longest end that was kind of those who were peeking out when I wore them. So the rest is just hiding inside and nobody can see. Yeah, so a quick project and yeah, they're done. I will probably keep them in my office and use them on cold days. Perfect. So the last project that is off my needles since we last spoke is a pair of mittens. And here they are. And this is my own design. I call them my pink Snowberry mittens. And yeah, you can probably see why. It's due to the berry pattern around on the middle part of the mitten. And yeah, so if you saw my last episode, I talked a little bit about these mittens then. They came about because I designed a pair of mittens for Christian's mother. She gifted me some Pharaoh wool over a year ago, and I hand dyed some of them, or some of it. I only found one of the remaining skeins now, but this is some of the yarn that I used in the original mitten, and it is now gifted away, but I include some videos here so you can see how they look. So they were kind of the prototype, and then I have altered the mitten a little bit and made them into this. And here there is a leaf motif, the leaves of the snowberry bush. Here are the snowberries, and here is kind of a snow crystal. So I'm not sure how common the snowberry is in the rest of the world, but where I live it's a very common kind of plant or bush to have in your garden, and they stay as white or pink berries for a very long time after the first frost. So I could see perfect small snowberries on these plants even after Christmas, and yeah, after some time during winter they will eventually kind of disappear and get brown and not so pretty to watch anymore, but yeah, they're so cute. And yeah, this was a very fun project to design, and I have used the Faroe Island wool, which is a Snelldon. It is 2-ply, I think, and I held it double, and then it creates a little thicker fabric, which I have felted slightly afterwards. And when you felt it, the fabric becomes so soft and not rustic at all. It's quite rustic to knit with it, but when you felt it afterwards, it kind of transforms into a very soft and lovely fabric. It got a thumb increase to make it fit your thumb in a nice way. And yeah, and so I'm very happy about it. I was planning to release this pattern in the beginning of March, but I have a little bit of issues with the English version of the pattern. The Norwegian version is almost ready to go, but yeah, I still have to do a little bit of work on the pattern before it can be available, and I will of course let you know once it is. So yeah. And I'm planning to knit these up using not double yarn but single yarn instead, to make a thinner version of this as well. Yeah, what else could I say? It is a very simple pattern, and it's a perfect way to use up smaller scraps of yarn. Did I say that I knitted these out of finull from Rauma? But you can use a variety of, like, it has to be untreated wool, of course, in order to be able to felt them afterwards. But you hold 2 threads together, and then you will kind of get a very warm but still airy mitten in the end. And if you would like, you can totally use smaller scraps of yarn to create the pattern sections. I think I used only 7 or 8 grams in total of each of the colors. So it's a nice stash buster project as well. Yeah. So that was my pink Snowberry mittens. Right, then we are left with what is on my needles. And firstly, I would like to show you, well, I was left with, I believe it was 5 or 6 balls of yarn after I finished Christian's Northland sweater. So this Rico Design Modern Tweed yarn. So my plan was then to knit up a matching dog sweater for Billy, of course. So here it is. And he also is getting a folded neck, a turtleneck. And I have included holes for his front feet, well, front legs. I have tried it on him several times, but the last time I tried it on was after he got his hair shortened. So, and then he reduces in volume quite a lot. So he kind of transforms from looking like a relatively large small dog and he gets into a little lamb after he's shorn. So yeah, when I tried this on last time, I discovered that it was a little bit too big. So I think now that I want to rip back to this hole where his feet is coming out, and then I will reduce the amount of stitches before I finish it off. Yeah, so this is knitted on needle, is it 4mm needles, and yeah, it's a very quick and easy project, but it is now put on hold because I am busy knitting on my terracotta sweater. I got a little bit interrupted yesterday, so here we are, day 2 of recording a podcast. I was about to tell you about my work in progress. It is the terracotta sweater that I talked about last time. I have been wanting to cast that one on ever since the pattern came out. It is a lovely pattern by Lene Holme Samsøe, the Danish designer. And yeah, here it is. I really love this knit. It is a great written pattern and it's easy to follow, and I just love the design. It's a combination of this texture pattern and the stranded color work, and it's kind of alternating all throughout. I started off by casting on up in back of the neck, and then the back piece and the front piece is worked flat, and I have just kind of joined the front and back, and I'm now working in the round. So it's so much fun. Something is happening all the way, and I think that's kind of what I find very exciting about when I'm knitting this. I also love my combination of yarns. This is a deep stash yarn, and I'm so excited to finally create something beautiful with it. So this is a hank of yarn from Easy Knits. I got 3 of them. It is a hand-dyed yarn, so it's kind of a semi-solid, I would consider it to be. It's their big boy base, and the color is called Snowdrop. And I'm combining it with, I would consider this as a raspberry red slash, I don't know, it's not burgundy, maybe it's burgundy, but it is a very deep and lovely red color with some brown and blue undertones. And I don't have the ball band for the red anymore, unfortunately, but this is also Etherknit. It is a slightly different base, but the yardage is exactly the same. So in the original pattern you are combining a fingering weight wool yarn, I think it's the Tynn Per Gynt, together with one strand of silk mohair, and I get kind of the same effect using my lovely yarn. Do you see the kind of a slightly fluffy halo there? The red is even more kind of fluffy than the grey, but yeah, the combination of the two is lovely. And the pattern, you know, the colorwork pattern comes out pretty, and it's very fun to knit, so I'm just chugging my way on that one. I want to knit on it every spare moment I have. I'm almost done with the first hank of yarn, and I've come to the point where there is, yeah, you can see that this has been a frogged project in the past, so I'm going to cut the yarn now when I'm reaching, you know, there is the frogged part, and this is untouched yarn. So I'm going to kind of just use this as a spare piece if in case I run out of yarn, which I don't believe I will, considering I got 2 of these left and they're both 150 gram skeins. So yeah, I am a loose knitter, so I'm knitting on slightly thinner needles than the patterns call for, but I mid gauge, and I was in between 2 sizes, so when it comes to choosing the correct size I could have gone down 1 size, but I opted for the larger size, as this is supposed to have about 20 centimeters of positive ease, and I think I will kind of get 25 centimeters of positive ease. I think that when I've seen the finished project pictures of this sweater, it looks very elegant when you have a decent amount of positive ease, as this is a drop shoulder construction, and I am really aiming to have get the drape and, you know, the fabric and the garment I wish for is similar to many of those pictures when you have a good positive ease on it. So yeah, I'm really excited for this, as you can probably tell, and I just want to continue knitting on it, basically. I have to say, I casted on the sweater during our winter break back in February, but I only did like a small 5 centimeters on the top back piece, and then I put it aside to finish off a couple of other things, and I picked this one back up again last week. So I've done all of this knitting in, I believe it is 8 days, 8 or 9 days. And some of these days have kind of given me a very small amount of knitting time, and other days I've managed to squeeze in a few hours. So yeah, I guess it just shows how how eager I am. I'm not a big fan though of knitting color work on the wrong side, and that is required both on the front and back panels prior to joining and knitting in the round underneath the armholes. So I'm quite happy that I'm finished with that part now. And from here and going forward, it's only color working in the round from the right side, so that's great. Yeah, so that is my most exciting project at the moment. I do have a couple of other ones though. I had a period early last week where I got one migraine attack that was pretty bad, and then I can't do much basically. I just have to wait for it to pass. And when I eventually came to a point where I could kind of lay in bed and do something, I wanted something very comforting to knit on. So I, instead of going for my complicated knits where I had to pay a lot of attention, I dived into my sock yarn stash and I found this yarn. Fortissima color by Scholler Stahl, and it is the color 2493, and based on the colors I think this is giving a sock that is really spring appropriate, don't you think? So this is just a very basic sock that I'm knitting on right now. With a lot of lighter pastel-y colors. I've just completed the heel and barely started on the gusset decreases. So yeah, just a basic little sock that was kind of a comfort knitting that I was gravitating towards. And I keep it in my handbag now, so whenever I'm on the go, going for errands, running errands or something like that, I bring this in my handbag and I can do a couple of stitches on rounds every now and then. I also pulled out an old whip that you probably recognize if you watched my Whip and UFOs episode back in January. And that is this one. This is a woolly sock. It is made out of this yarn, which is Vandre from Rauma, and it is a 100% wool, but it is spun in a way that makes it very durable when it is knit up and you use it. So it is recommended for socks actually. It is rather thick. It is 120 meters per 50 gram, and the recommended needle is 3.5. So I use a 3.5 needle and I am just knitting a basic sock. So the reason for me going for these crazy primary colors combined together is that I got 4 balls of this yarn from my son for Christmas. Yeah, I believe it is maybe 3 years back or 2, don't recall exactly. but I always get so kind of heart-warmed and blown away when I get yarn as gifts from my family. It doesn't happen often. So he gave me 2 balls of each of these two, and I was pretty sure that it wasn't enough of the blue and it wasn't enough for the red in order to create a one color sock. So I kind of just decided to combine these two in a way to create a sock. Yeah, so that's what I did. And when I look at them now, they kind of reminds me of supporter socks, like soccer or football supporter teams. And I'm not into football at all, but we do have a Premier League football or soccer team in Norway, Vålerenga, that have their kind of team oh my god, the t-shirts and yeah, the outfit in red and blue. So yeah, I don't know. And you know, using primary colors in this way is a bit, it's not very comforting for the eye to look at, but never mind. I'm knitting this in a slightly larger size than my own, and when I'm finished with the pair, my plan is to ask Iver, my son, if he would be interested in this pair of socks, and if he's not, I will use them. They're going to be really, really warm, and they're super rustic. They're there is not an inch of softness in this sock. So you definitely, or I think I would prefer to have a thinner sock underneath, but it might happen that the sock will soften once it is washed. So of course my hopes is that it will be a little bit more comfortable to wear against the skin eventually. I have casted on the second sock, and yeah, this is a project I really need to work on a little bit slowly because it's quite rough and it's hard to, it's a lot of resistance in the yarn, so I need to use more force to work every stitch, and that is painful for my neck and between my shoulder blades. So yeah, but they will be finished. I'm pretty eager now to just clear them off my needles. I apologize if you can hear a voice in the background because Christian is now working from our home office, which is the room next to me. He's listening into a video meeting, a conference, but right now he's talking quite loudly. Well, okay. I believe that was everything knitting wise this time. This is all of the things that I've been working actively on. I will, however, show you just briefly that I am planning on putting a big dent into my mited square blanket now. It is finished. I've finished all of the squares, they're all knitted. But because I've chosen to do a solid border around each square like this, I need to complete the blanket knitting, excuse me, knitting on a solid border around the 2 sides of the blanket that doesn't already have a black border. Like for instance, if you see here, the border is already there. It's kind of created just naturally by doing the first 5 rounds of each square with a black yarn. And then you are left with 2 kind of raw edges, or not raw edges, but edges without the black color. So all the way here, and on this side, ooh, there we go, is where I need to add the solid border. I have started here just trying out a couple of techniques to see if it works out, and I think it does. But yeah, I think now that I've kind of worked one border just over this particular square and over this particular square and joined them here. But to save me some time, I think I will pick up stitches along maybe half of the edge and do the border complete, and then repeat the process for the rest of the blanket. And I have a goal to finish this blanket before the end of next week, when my son has his birthday, because this blanket is for him. It has always been intended for him, and he's been kind of joining along as I started knitting the blanket, and he has approved most of the colors, and it would be fun to have it finished by his birthday so he can receive it then. So yes, I will come back to that in my next chat with you. I have done some purchases since we last spoke, not much. I will try to do this without so much crinkling noise from the shopping bag. So firstly, I have still gotten a monthly subscription from Fru Fjellman. She's a wonderful Swedish designer, no, not designer, she's a hand dyer from Sweden. And she has this monthly subscription where you get a secret kind of monthly yarn, so I would never know in advance what color or what base I receive, which I think is kind of fun. And she comes up with, yeah, I love every color that she is making. So this is the secret monthly yarn for March. It is called Hymn, and it is a fingering weight sock yarn, merino sock yarn. Super pretty. And then I was at the shopping mall 2 weeks back. My dog Billy, he was at the dog groomers, and I had a couple of hours just to myself, and I walked around the shopping mall, and you know, I did some purchases that needed to be done. For instance, a new lamp for our living room, that was a planned purchase, and then I had even more time. And at this specific shopping mall they have a rather large yarn shop, and I went in there. I wasn't going to buy any yarn, but I needed a pair of needles. And I got the needles, and then I saw that they had some yarn on sale, and then I wasn't going to have any yarn, but my mind just totally forgot. So I ended up with, this is new to me, I've never tried this yarn before, but I have heard so many wonderful things about it, and it is Untold, which is local to me yarn brand. I believe their yarn is produced in Italy, but it has a wonderful quality to it. This is their Supreme Wool, which is, yeah, it's a virgin wool, 100% untreated wool. But it's very soft, very kind of tightly spun, so I think it will be excellent for our garment. And this green color is just so fresh. I love it. So as this was a clearance sale, they only had 5 balls left. This is a DK weight, and 5 balls is not near enough for a sweater. But they also had this very light grey, which is called pearly white. So I think the combination of the two is great, and I'm either going to go for a striped, like really broad stripy sweater, or I will color block it. So either start with the grey, knit all my way down, and when I run out of the grey I will start using the green, or the other way around. So 9 balls of DK weight yarn into my stash, but that's okay. And even though I'm really focused and really eager to use more yarn from my stash, I'm not kind of limiting myself to not buying any new yarn. I'm just trying to be mindful about it. So yeah. Right, so that brings me over to my February recap. As we are finished with that month for sure, we are we are halfway through March already, which is crazy. The time goes by so quickly. So for February, in my lovely notebook, where I keep my notes of every project that I'm working on, and I find it so great to use a notebook like this. It's the first time ever I'm doing it, actually. If it wasn't for this way of keeping track, I wouldn't have known that by this time I have already worked on 20 projects this year, and most of them are actually finished, which is crazy, but I love it. Yeah, my memory is kind of limited, so this helps me very much keeping track on when I do things, what I do, whenever things were finished, when I started it, etc. So I love it. I'm definitely going to keep on working with my notes. So okay, for February I finished 5 projects. I also started 5 projects, and only 2 of them were finished and casted off by the end of February. I used 896 grams of yarn, so that's kind of out of my stash, and I bought 550 grams of yarn, which is the things I just talked to you about. So yes, that is the summary of the month. I knitted 1 sweater. That is Christian's Northland sweater. I finished 1 pair of socks. I finished 2 pairs of mittens and 1 pair of wrist warmers. So yeah, and if you're curious about my UFO status, by the end of February I still had 13 UFOs left, and this is one of them, and Damejakka Loppa is still counting because I didn't finish that in February, and the blanket for my son is also one of those UFOs. So I think that I will be able to cross off at least 3 more of those UFOs in March, which is excellent. Excellent. Very good, Ina. So yeah, that brings me to the wrap-up part, and I have to say thank you so much for being here with me and listening to me rambling on about my knitting and my yarn. I love everything about my knitting hobby, and I'm so glad and happy that I am able to talk to you about this here on YouTube, and that you are interested in listening to what I'm talking about. And every time somebody writes back, give me comments or questions and feedback on my episodes, it means so much to me. So thank you so much for being here, for liking my videos and commenting and being a loyal subscriber. And if you would like to see more from me and my channel, please do subscribe. I will also leave a link in the description box below for my great community over at Patreon. So if you're interested in checking that out, please do so. And if not, I will see you later. So I hope you're having a great March and happy knitting. And P.S. knit on things that brings you joy and comfort. Take care. Bye.